Hi, I'm Andrea Anthony, and you're watching Eat, Drink, and Bake with Andrea. Today I have some great recipes planned for you. We're starting off with a raw artichoke salad, moving on to a rustic seafood stew, and we're ending up with a light almond cake. But I have a very special guest that's joining us today, Ken Arnone, who is a certified master chef, both nationally and globally. He's going to join us today and make our raw artichoke salad. Ken, welcome to the show. I have to tell you, I really appreciate you being here. I know you're a busy man. Could you just tell us a little bit about your background? Because I'm so impressed. I know your background.
Sure.
I know where you've been. I'd love you to share it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me. Great honor to be here. I greatly appreciate it. So I've been in the industry for, it's a little bit scary, but over 40 years. I started when I was a kid working at Dunkin' Donuts. Time to make the donuts, and
Come a long way.
through the years, I've worked my way up, working in restaurants, fine dining. After I was in the business for quite some time, I ended up going back to the Culinary Institute of America, where I received an associate's degree, and from there went out working in the industry across the country, worked on the West Coast, worked down south a bit. Ended up back in Manhattan and working at the Marriott in Times Square, and then from there I went back to the Culinary Institute of America to teach, where I was there for 7 years. While I was there, I took my Certified Master Chef exam, and I left about 17 years ago. Started with Cola Vita as a corporate chef, also do a little bit of other consulting, and right now also opening a restaurant.
Oh, now that's exciting. We're going to talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But just a word about Master Chef. Not everybody knows what that means, and not everybody knows how few there are. Could you maybe just explain a little bit more about that certification?
Sure. So currently there's 72 certified master chefs in the United States.
That's amazing. 72 in the United States. That's noteworthy.
The Certified Master Chef exam is through the American Culinary Federation, which is the only governing body for chefs in the United States today. At the time when I took it, it was a 10-day exam. We've modernized it a little bit. It's 8 days right now, and still a work in progress. Currently serve on the committee, American Culinary Federation Certified Master Chef Committee, where we continuously make adjustments and have the test evolving.
Let's talk a little bit about our ingredients today and what we're starting with. You know, this is a raw salad. A lot of people don't know that you can really eat artichokes raw.
The first piece, let's talk about artichokes. And right here we have two different, we have baby artichokes and grown-up artichokes. And in general, when you're shopping, you typically are going to find two species of artichokes, globe, which are the more round ones, and then violetta, which are more conical. For this salad in particular, it is very important to have very fresh artichokes. If it's kind of rubbery when it snaps, or you have lots of fibers, you know that it's a little bit on the older side. Mm-hmm. For this recipe, I prefer baby artichokes because they are more tender. So other than the artichokes, we're going to add some very thinly shaved fennel, fresh fennel in there, nice crisp with good flavor to it.
Now, once again, if you're choosing fennel, what are the things you look for?
Yeah, same thing. So heavy and tight and compact that you're looking for. If you start to see the layers are coming apart easily or gapping, or it's mushy and soft, you know that it's not a great head of fennel.
Mm-hmm. And what about this part? Does this have any bearing in choosing your
so
fennel?
It's a great question. So I think, you know, a lot of times you see in the markets, well, sometimes you see that they've already shaved the head off.
Yes, I've noticed that.
And I think people like that, unfortunately, because they say, oh, well, I don't have to clean it at home. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that the fennel fronds or the hair or the herb from the fennel is great to be used. This is Parmigiano Reggiano, which is a great aged cheese. And we're going to shave that thin and incorporate it into the salad.
Great. And there's another thing that we have to mention about the artichokes, and that's that I know when they're cut, they oxidize very quickly. So how can we sort of combat that?
Yeah, so great point. Artichokes are incredibly temperamental. So as soon as you cut away from the green exterior and you expose that light yellow or whitish color, it's going to begin to oxidize. And there are lots of tricks, right? So I've seen through the years people, they will have cut lemons, and the second that they expose it, they're rubbing the lemons all over it.
Yes, I've seen that as well.
In this case, we're not going to get that crazy. We're going to have a little bowl of acidulated liquid, water, which you could have some vinegar in there, you can have some lemon juice in there. We'll put it right in the, rub it in the acidulated liquid or dip it in there so that it's going to help slow down the oxidation.
Gotcha. And we also have arugula.
We have some beautiful arugula that we're going to incorporate into the salad. And we'll probably put some basil in there as well, add some nice sweetness. We'll use a little bit of a Chardonnay balsamic vinegar and some Italian extra virgin olive oil.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm excited about this recipe. Let's get started. Let's start with the artichokes.
I'd just like to show you the difference here. So this one, you can see that the stem is a little bit more rigid and firm. This one here, you can see it's really kind of softer. And from a quality standpoint, you definitely would like to have them more like this.
More firm.
Yeah, definitely. What I'm going to show today is more of how I would recommend the home cooks to do it so that it's a little bit easier, all right, and not as maybe intimidating. So we're going to cut the base flat to start with, and from there we're going to trim just down, let's just say, till you have about 1.25 inches or so left on the base of the artichoke. Using a paring knife, and of course you want to be careful with this, we don't want to lose any digits. You can see the difference in color here, right? So where it's going from the darker green, where it begins to get a little bit more on the yellow side, that's where we want to bring the paring knife in.
So essentially, all of those leaves are really not being used for the salad.
Not for this salad. We're going to use the heart specifically for this. So we're turning around, heading back towards that point. Okay, so now that we've done that, now you can really start to see where the base of the heart is, and that where you still have the softer leaves, and we know that the choke is there, right? So given that, you can see where the ridge is. We can cut straight down from the ridge. Then we're going to come around and we're going to turn. So you often will hear somebody saying, yeah, well, you're turning an artichoke. And this is what you're doing, coming around. And you're removing that darker green.
So the goal is to have the white part of the artichoke
Correct.
that we're dealing with.
And we have some acidulated liquid here that we have lemon juice and some of the Chardonnay balsamic, and we're going to dip that in there, which is going to help slow down that oxidation process. And now from here, we're going to cut around. And then we have the choke in the center there.
And the choke is that hairy part that we all see.
Right, that will choke you.
Literally.
So you take a spoon and scoop that out. And you can see, so it's cleaned out, but what we're going to have to take out, you see there's a little part of the artichoke that started to rot. And again, we talked about not having great, unfortunately not having great quality, but that's the cleaned heart that we're going to use for the base of the salad.
So important to have a bowl with cold water and vinegar and also lemon juice. You want to be prepared for this dish because you don't want to stop in the middle of it and then have to find your water and lemon juice and vinegar. So good to have that all set for you. In it goes, and then you proceed on with the recipe.
Now we're gonna show two different methods for slicing the artichokes, and we're gonna put them directly back into this acidulated liquid. And you have a trusty mandolin here for us to utilize. So you want to keep this on as thin of a setting as you can possibly get it, so that when we slice these artichokes, and the best way to tell is to taste them. So yeah, they're good, they have good flavor to them. Just a little bit of that bitter note, which is preferable, and that's nice and thin. So we're going to continue. One of the things that we talked about is how do you handle it if you don't have a mandolin? So the answer there is we can use a very sharp knife, a chef's knife, which would be perfect for this. I would put the cup down, which is going to give you more stability, and using your fingers as a guide, you can slice very thin pieces, just as we would have done with the mandolin.
So it can really be done either way. If you don't have the kitchen utensil of the mandolin, you can certainly use your knife.
Yeah.
And noticing that chef's fingers are pointed away from the knife. Very important so you don't slice off the tip of those fingers.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So sometimes you see people will hold their fingers like this and they're cutting, and you're going to end up potentially snipping your finger off. But if you have your knuckle against there and you're slicing, you should use that as a guide and prevent you from cutting your finger off. Okay, so we're going to slice the rest of the artichokes, and then we're going to start on the fennel.
Excellent. So what's our next step?
So our next step is going to be to work on the fennel. So what I like to do, we trim the top off and the bottom there. I'm going to cut this in half through that core, and then from there, you just want to take a little bit of this, the biggest part of the core out with a little V-cut, and that'll pop right out of there, okay? And then from there, as we did with the artichoke, you're good.
So we're trying to keep sort of the same type of cut as we did with the artichoke.
Yeah, absolutely, correct.
Nice and thin.
Yeah. Put some of this in the bowl with our arugula there. Do you want to get started on draining those artichokes for us?
Okay. I'll get those ready. Yeah, you can see how nice and white they stayed.
And you'll often see recipes that call for the fennel to be placed in acidulated liquid as well. You can do it, but if you're working quick enough with it, you really don't have to.
So it doesn't oxidize quite as quickly?
Not as quickly. And the benefit of that is that you're not, diluting the flavor of it. We have the fennel fronds here, which we're going to chop. Smells fantastic, just infectious. Basil is very delicate, and it bruises and turns black very quickly. So you want to be very delicate and gentle with the basil. So you stack the leaves, just fold it over gently, and then chiffonade is a very thin cut. So just slicing, just like we did with the fennel and the artichokes, just make sure you're cutting through, not cutting your fingers off.
Beautiful.
And
look how
voila,
beautiful that
we
looks.
have a very fine chiffonade. Okay, so we're going to add that to our salad. You want to add the artichokes in there. Beautiful. And then next step that's kind of important, I'm just going to clean up a little bit here, is we want to add some lemon juice. And one little trick with the lemon juice is roll the lemons before you cut them. So if you put them on their side and you roll them, it really helps you get all the juice out of there, breaks it up.
Releases the juice in there.
It
Makes
does,
it easier.
yeah. And you could certainly use a citrus reamer. They're cute and all, but just popping some of the seeds out of there. And I'm gonna give a nice squeeze. Okay, so next we're gonna add some Italian extra virgin olive oil, which is a very important part of this.
I can actually smell that lemon as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now we're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. So you certainly could use your hands when, you're at home.
So we're doing a taste, the ceremonial taste.
Excellent.
All right. Oh my God, that is just wonderful. And you know what? I love the addition of the fennel. When I've had it in other situations, there was not fennel in it, and this adds just a great addition to the dish.
It's nice and crisp, right? Gives you that fennel anisey flavor in there,
Wow.
licorice.
Beautiful.
So, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of vinegar. We have some Chardonnay balsamic, which is going to go very nicely with the dish. We're going to also add just a bit more seasoning to it. And being careful not to over-season, because we are going to finish it with some shaved Parmigiano Reggiano, and we don't want to make it too salty. Okay, and then we have our block of cheese here, and shave right on top, and voila.
Unbelievable. A wonderful salad. But I have a question to ask you. I know you're opening up a restaurant.
Yes.
And it is a rotisserie Italian.
Yes, a Rosto Italian rotisserie.
Can I expect to see my favorite salad there?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that means we have to make it ourselves. But now we know Chef Ken's secrets. We are ready for the main course, our seafood stew, which is rustic, and it's just all kinds of great ingredients. So let's talk about them a little bit. We're starting off with the star of the show, which is our seafood. We have halibut, which you could use cod or you could use haddock. A firm fish is what you want to use in a recipe like this. We have our sea scallops, we have jumbo shrimp, which have been peeled and deveined, and we have our shellfish, mussels, and clams. Now I'm pointing out that these are little necks. They've been scrubbed and they've been soaked 3 times with salt water and drained. We want to get all the grit out, so that's what we'll do it. Salt water, about 1 gallon of water, about 1 tablespoon of salt, and you want to soak them and change it 3 times just to get all the grit out. Mussels, these are Prince Edward Island mussels, and they come in pretty clean. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of a beard on them. Situation like this, you can just kind of pick that off. The other thing I want to mention is you want to make sure they're live. That means they have to be closed. And if you see them slightly open, doesn't always mean that they're not alive. You want to give them a tap. And if they're alive, they'll close right up. And all these are looking really good. So that's the base of our stew. Now to move on to our other ingredients. We have thinly sliced garlic, lots of garlic. We have shallots. We have Vidalia onions. You could use yellow onions for this dish if you like them. We have celery, we have carrots, we have some potatoes. These are new skin potatoes, which are just quartered. We have a little bit of tomato paste. We have our chopped tomatoes. We have a little bit of stock. We have our fresh basil, some fresh parsley, and we have oregano. We have fennel seed. Now that adds a nice flavor. You can either use fresh fennel or fennel seed. For this recipe, I'm using the seed. We have a little oregano, as I said. We have cayenne to add a little bit of heat, a bay leaf, and last but not least, saffron threads. That adds the finishing flavor to this dish, and it's such an important part of it. If you left this out, you would taste the difference. You absolutely need some crusty bread. I'm using baguettes. You want to put them in about 350 for about 10-15 minutes until they're nice and crisp. We're going to begin first with our olive oil. Okay, we're using an extra virgin olive oil and our thinly sliced garlic. Lots of garlic. Now we can put that in the pan and our shallots. We're going to add them together. Okay, we have a slightly golden hue. Now we're adding our onions. Now the onions, we're just going to let them sweat a little bit, just a little bit. So we're going to cook those for probably about, I'd say a minute. And now it's time for our carrots, which have just a rough cut on those, and celery, same thing. And we're going to let those cook for about another minute or 2. So our carrots, onions, and celery are slightly tender. It's our mirepoix. I'm going to add a little bit of white wine. And now we're going to add some chopped tomatoes and our chicken stock, our tomato paste, just a little bit, our fresh basil. Adds a little bit of sweetness to the dish. Bay leaf. We have a little bit of oregano. We have our fennel seed, a little bit of cayenne, and saffron, our most important ingredients. And we have our parsley. Okay, so once you've added that, then we're adding our potatoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the flame. We're going to bring it to a boil and then bring it down to a simmer. So we'll give that a few minutes to come to boil, reduce, and cook our potatoes a bit. We're going to put the seafood in different stages because they cook at different rates. So let's begin with our steak fish, or I should say our filleted fish here. Now, we're not going to give that too long. This is kind of the critical part of the recipe with timing. We're just going to give that about a minute or two to get a little catch up there, and then we're going to go on to the shellfish. Okay, so when the fish looks white, it's not done, it's fleshy on the inside, but when it appears white, that's when we're going on to the next stage. We are going to add our shellfish now. So the shellfish go in. Now when you add your shellfish, the broth has cooled down. Okay, the temperature has been brought down because of the temperature of all the shellfish. So you have to raise your flame just a little bit, and I can already see it starting to simmer. Okay, so if you look at the sides of the bowl, you can see the simmer starting. At that point, we're going to close it up. So we'll check back on that in a couple of minutes. This has been about 5 or 6 minutes. Our shellfish here, our mussel, is almost all the way open. That's the time you want to throw your shrimp in. With the broth and all, whatever's come off the shrimp is going to add to that stock. Okay, make sure that all of your seafood is beneath the broth, so we're going to push that down because that's what we're relying on to cook it. This is just an incredible dish. All of this shellfish, there's a lot of ingredients, but I will tell you that they all have their role in this dish and they all provide their own flavor, and together it just works so nicely. Usually you don't serve this with pasta, but I will tell you that I have made this dish with over pasta. And you know, it's a broth, it's not really a sauce, it's brothy, it is more like a soup, but it tastes great. So I've made it with you know, smaller size pasta. And there we have it. We have our rustic seafood stew with all kinds of vegetables and herbs and spices and crusty bread for dipping. Our last recipe is dessert, and that's our light almond cake. Now, what I want to point out about this cake is it uses almond paste. We're going to make our own because it's so simple. Once you see how easy it is, you'll never buy almond paste. A little bit about the ingredients. By the way, this is what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so you can see it's pasty. So in terms of the almond paste, we're going to do that first. And all we do is we start out with blanched almonds, slivered almonds. We have some confectionery sugar, and we have egg whites. And then the body of the cake is very simple. It's cake flour, eggs, sugar, butter, and our almond paste, okay? And a little bit of almond extract. So let's get started on the almond paste. You need a food processor for this. Okay, we're gonna add the almonds. Okay, we're looking for sort of a grainy consistency, okay? So you can see, almost like, not quite like sawdust, but pretty finely chopped. Okay, next, we're adding our powdered sugar. Now this has been sifted. We don't want to have any lumps in there. Okay, so we're putting that in. And our egg whites. And a teaspoon of pure almond extract. And that's pretty much it. Now you'll notice the consistency when we just make it, it's a little bit more pliable. And of course you can use this right away. If you make it ahead of time, it will be a little bit more thick and congealed. Both really work fine because we're using a mixer. Now we're going to start with the body of our cake. First thing, we have our eggs and our granulated sugar. And what we're going to do is we're going to whip that until it's nice and light and creamy. And we can add our butter. Give that a little mix, and then we're going to add our almond paste. Most of this recipe is just whipping all the ingredients together, but as you can see, very, very easy ingredients here. Now, at this point, we're going to switch attachments. And we're going to add our flour, and this is cake flour, which has been pre-sifted, self-rising. Okay, and 2 teaspoons of almond. And now what we're going to do is just whip it. We're really going to just let it go and whip it until it's light and creamy. We are looking good. Everything is nicely combined. It's pale yellow in color. And we're just going to scrape the sides of the bowl. And you want to fold it a little bit just to make sure all the ingredients are well combined. Sometimes things pool a little bit, so you use your spatula. But as you can see, it's nicely combined. Now, we have a 10-inch springform pan. It's been greased and ready to go. So we're just going to put our batter in. Okay, so it's going into our oven, 350 degrees for approximately 30 minutes or until we insert a toothpick and it comes out clean. Our cake is nicely cooled, and now we're ready for just a little bit of confectionery sugar. Okay, and we can just kind of sprinkle that on just a little bit, and that's it. We have our light almond cake, which is a perfect ending to our meal today. We have our great meal here, which is very rustic, starting with our raw artichoke salad with some shaved Parmesan and fennel with lemon and oil. We have our rustic seafood stew with crispy bread for dipping in our rich broth, and we ended up with a light almond cake. And I'm pairing this dish with some rosé wine, and it just goes wonderful with everything. Thank you for watching Eat, Drink, and Bake with Andrea. Please follow me on social media at Eat, Drink, and Bake. And for more information about my spice line, visit eatdrinkandbake.com. And remember, it's all about great ingredients, step-by-step recipes, and making time for our friends and family. Cheers. Until next time.